I'm going to hope that, okay, everyone can hear me. This is actually a test. They've given me 2 microphones, which anyone who knows me knows that's an incredibly bad decision. I can remember in particular, there's a scene in, I believe the movie where it was The Wedding Date or something, where the woman looks at someone, says, "Oh my God, they've given that woman a mic. Take it out of her hand." They've given me 2, so good luck to all of you. I want to say, first of all, I do say thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today. It's always a pleasure. I feel that I've actually spoken to the sales and marketing group. I think this may be my 4th time. If that's the case, practice makes perfect, so perhaps I'll get it right at some point in the future, and we'll be able to share this. I'm also mindful of the fact that I'm speaking to a group of people who are marketing professionals and executives. And I want to just note as I start this discussion that I realize that you know everything I'm about to say. Sometimes I think about the fact that I've probably told my children over and over and over again the same stories. I probably made the same suggestions. We tell fables over and over again to our kids. So I'm just going to take this line that I am actually reminding you of what you already know, and perhaps in a new way that'll be fresh and perhaps helpful. So now I'm going to grab back from Dale, the advancer, and we're going to start. And I actually titled first of all, for those of you who watch Project Runway, you will recognize the phrase, make it work. Make it work marketing is a particular phrase I love. Make it work. In Project Runway, Tim Gunn is an advisor to a group of aspiring designers. And his favorite phrase to say to them, particularly when they're in a disastrous moment, is make it work. So I'm going to tell you that we all are marketing for a living. We're trying very hard to make it work. And I'm going to just remind you that even when things are tough, we're trying to send a message. We're trying to make a difference. And so we're going to try to today talk a little bit about make it work marketing and sending a message that matters. And the only image that I could come up with as I got ready to do this, because I do think it's important for us to think about the messages that we're sending, is this message of a bottle adrift in a great vast ocean. Those bottles that are set adrift in the sea remarkably find their way to an important place more often than we would expect. But for all of us, sending a message that matters is very important to the success of our companies and our personal pursuits. So I'm going to just suggest to you that we want to start thinking about sending a message that matters in a way that works. And I'm going to start with just some compelling facts. This is important. The communication challenge can't be overstated anymore, because the average U.S. consumer receives 1,500 marketing messages a day. Now, I've used a number at the low end of the scale. I reconfirmed again this morning. There are people who believe that we receive as many as 20,000 marketing messages a day. But I just can't get my head around that because I'm a math person, and so I converted it. And if we're receiving 1,500 messages a day and we're awake for 17 hours a day, then that means that we're receiving a marketing message about 1.4 seconds, every 1.4 seconds. Frankly, we're overwhelmed by marketing messages. And if you think about it, take a look around. On our table, there's a marketing message on every single package of sweetener. There's a marketing message on our butter on the table. There's a marketing message on our clothing. That doesn't even start to touch the messages that we saw as we walked in or out of this particular establishment, or the messages that we're going to receive as we drive down the road. And I want to just make it really clear. In fact, Sean, who is my seatmate today, just pointed out to me that we have the attention span of a guppy or a goldfish, which is about 8 seconds. You have, all of us in this room, we have about 8 seconds to capture a person's attention and to fascinate them enough to be inspired to take a next step. I want to just note 8 seconds. That's down from 9 seconds at the last review, and it's down from in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution from 20 minutes. We're running out of time, sports fans, and I hope my 8 seconds were well spent, and you're going to join me for the rest of this presentation. So we're overwhelmed with messages. And we're also overwhelmed with the cost of engagement. I want to just note for the record, these numbers are also very fluid. It used to be easy. Advertising Age has been doing a survey for many, many years, and it quantifies the numbers of dollars that are spent on marketing messages every year. And the number used to be a really set number, a set point. I could go to it, and it was always, consistent. Nobody doubted it. It had down to the cents. It seemed really exact and precise. What's happened to us in this changing and evolving world in which messages are sent, it's almost impossible to capture the amount of money that's being invested in tweeting from our seat for hashtag SMS. It's almost impossible to understand what's happening on Facebook. It's almost impossible to quantify the messages that are being sent on Instagram and tweeted. But we do know this, that even at the bottom of the market and even at the low points, the number is $250 billion annually. And at the high end of estimates, it's as many as $500 billion. And let me just offer to you, for a little perspective, $150 billion is larger than the gross national product over 185 countries in the world. Do you start to understand this incredibly challenging space that all of us are living and working in? Those numbers are daunting. They're actually a little depressing. But they're also going to tell me, this is a terrible message to send to a group in sales and marketing, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I think it's important for us to just say this. The cold hard fact is that we are probably wasting more money in ineffective marketing than almost any other activity on the face of the planet. And you say that to yourselves right now because you're the stewards, everyone in this room, or those, how you touch it, what you're doing, you're the stewards of the investment that is being made for your company, for your organization, for your business, and for yourself. And we have to be better at what we're doing. Because as it stands today, what we're really doing is we're literally standing on our chairs and we're shouting at each other. And I would just argue, I've learned over time, it's almost, while I have a child present in the room, so I would not be on safe territory to say I have never raised my voice, but I've learned as I've matured as an adult that it almost always a really ineffective way of communicating a message. So we've got to get better. So I thought what I'd talk about today, again reminding you of what you already know, is that we need to step back and remember what the process is. If we're going to send a message that matters, what do we need to be thinking about? And so I have 4 questions for all of us to consider. First of all, who are we talking to? Secondly, are they ready to hear us? The third question, what are we trying to say? And then the final and most important question, do not leave here without answering this question for yourself and answering it honestly. By the way, you don't have to answer out loud, but you do have to answer it to yourself and honestly. And that is, am I sending a message that matters to me, or am I sending a message that matters to the person that I'm speaking to? It's the single most important question that all of us need to ask as we're marketing. Now, I've been doing this for a very long time. And I'm going to step back and say, and in my very long time, let me quantify that, because I've started claiming I'll turn 57 in March of this year. I never lie about my age, because every time they put my name in that paper, they say, comma, blank, my age, and then carry on. I'm not sure why it's important, but in this context, I'm going to tell you that it's really important because I've spent 35 years in the financial services industry, but I've spent a great portion of that time in the space where I was trying to develop a process or plan to sell my services or sell myself to people that I needed to have bought in to what I was doing. And it's the most fundamental question that we should always ask ourselves when we're doing this business, but we don't often start there, and that is, in order to be successful in marketing, you have to know who you're talking to. And you gotta really be honest with yourself about when you're talking and where you're talking, whether you're reaching the people that you want to reach. And then you need to ask yourself, again honestly, do I know who I'm trying to reach? Do I know who I'm trying to reach? Don't raise your hands, but I'm going to tell you that the best marketing organizations in the world always do marketing research. They always go out to confirm the question, who am I talking to? And what am I talking about? And are they hearing my message? The problem that we have in a world where we've been tight on budgets, and goodness knows if we're spending $250 to $500 billion, I can't imagine why we're having a hard time gathering the funds together to make it work effectively, but we are. And I will tell you, one of the first things that we sacrifice is the market research or the market information that we need to have to understand who we're talking to. But if you want to be effective, and if you want to have success in selling your product or your service or yourself, then you got to make sure that you're honestly answering the question of, who am I talking to? Do I know why I'm talking to them? Am I talking to them because they're a great prospect for my service? Am I talking to them because everybody else is talking to them, so it seems like a good idea? Am I talking to them because I understand the need that they have? Or am I a product in search, am I a solution in search of a problem? Because I will tell you that all of us are guilty of that particular pitfall when it comes to marketing. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I'm going to probably spend a few more minutes on this just because I can't help myself, which is, are they ready to hear us? Okay, let's just say for sake of argument that we have all perfectly identified who our target market is, and we know exactly who our prospects are, and we know exactly what we're getting ready to talk to them about. The next question we need to ask ourselves, are they ready to hear my message? I don't know if y'all have had this discussion in a long time, but there's all of us have a position. All of us occupy a space. And the position that we occupy is really going to talk about the readiness that people have to hear our message and to buy our product or service. When I was very young, I like to say in my 20s, before there were computers and before there were online directories to do this, I read a book by two gentlemen called Jack Trout and Al Reese. Jack Trout and Al Reese happened to have written some of the earliest books on branding and understanding your product. They were really thought leaders in this space. And when I was 24 years old and working at First Tennessee, a place that gave me my first start, I read their book, and I was just fascinated by the idea, and I thought, you know what? I'm selling a product or a service for our company that I really need some help in understanding what I should be doing, and I think these people could help me. So I called New York directory assistants because, by the way, I want to just remind everyone in this room who's under the age of, 40, that you used to not have to, you couldn't go look up a number online, you couldn't go find someone. So I called area code 212, the New York directory. I asked for their firm, Trout and Reese. They gave me the telephone number. I want you to listen to how I sound. I have had this accent, which is nearly a speech impediment for my entire life. So I call up the phone, and the receptionist at Trout and Reese answers the phone, and I didn't say, could I speak with someone at Jack Trout? I didn't say, could I speak with someone who works for Trout and Reese? I said, could I speak with Jack Trout or Al Reese? Because I was just young enough and stupid enough to not know that you didn't call and ask for the people whose name was on the front door. So I called Jack Trout and Al Reese, and remarkably, and I suspect that what happened is the woman on the phone covered the receiver, walked around the corner and said, "You're not going to believe there's this woman on the phone, And she says, "May I speak to Jack Trout or Al Reese?" I'm sure Jack Trout answered the phone mostly out of complete curiosity. So I said, "Mr. Trout, my name is Susan, and I live in Memphis, Tennessee. I work for a company called First Tennessee Bank, and I need your help." And he said, "What do you need my help to do?" And I said, "I think understand positioning." And he said, "Well, like, you want to talk about it now?" And I said, "No, sir, I'd really love to come see you." And so I convinced my boss at First Tennessee to let me get on a plane to go to New York City. And I went to learn what Jack Trout and Al Reese, who remarkably, for a large fee, took the time to actually sit down and visit with me. But they taught me something that I'll never forget, that all of us in this room need to remember, and that is, we have scarce space. And this was, by the way, this was 1981. So the space, Sean, as we know, is getting much scarcer. Everyone has little ladders in their head. And there's only so much room in your head to keep information on the ladder. And if I'm making a decision, let's just say this afternoon that I'm going to go to Best Buy and buy a television set. When I go to Best Buy to buy a television set, I have in my head a handful of brands. In my case, it's Samsung and Toshiba and LG. And those are the television sets that I'm sort of ready. I have enough information about them to know that I might be interested in buying one of those TVs. If I go there, by the way, please don't tell my friends at Sharp that I didn't have them. There are 4 on the list. But anyway, let's just say that I go to Best Buy and the salesperson says, "I have a fabulous TV I'd like to show you." And he walks me over to a TV that really looks pretty fabulous, but I don't recognize the name. So he's telling me a message that I'm not ready to hear. I'm going to have to go back now. I'm either going to have to defer my purchase to go do research, because I'm going to want to know that I'm making a good decision that I'm not going to regret in another couple of weeks or a couple of days. And so I have a readiness issue to hear, "Here's a fabulous new TV. You need to be thinking about this set because." I'm going to just offer to you guys that all of us need to understand, you need to understand your position. There's a scarce space. Let me speak specifically about Independent Bank. Independent Bank, iBank, is a bank that came into a market that was dominated by 3 local players that were a geographic oligopoly, which is a fancy word for saying they owned all the customers. When we started in our business, there were 3 locally headquartered banks that owned over 75% of all the deposits in this market. So when people had a readiness to purchase issue, they had a short ladder, and if I'm using my rule of 3s, their names were on the top. Those were the 3 names that were on that ladder. So one of the things that I had to personally acknowledge is that I had to figure out how to knock somebody off the ladder to crawl into contention to be part of the purchase process. And I'm saying that to you because you have to ask yourself the question, who's on the ladder? Who's in front of me? And what can I do to crawl up on that ladder? And I'm going to say to you, where's your competition? Because acknowledging that you have competition is really an important part of what you do when you sell and you market. You have to know as much about your competition as your competition knows about you. And let me just assure you that we all are trying to live and learn and understand what our competitors are doing. You have to know those questions. You have to be aware of that. You have to do it whether you're selling directly or whether you're marketing to a large group of people. And I'll tell you the tip that they gave me, and it's probably one of the most important things. They wrote a later book. Y'all should go get these books, by the way, even though people refute them sometimes now. There's the book that they wrote, 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And they literally talk about how you create a ladder position. And, if you have a chance to be the first at doing something, do that. Banking had already been in business for about 6,000 years when I came along, so I couldn't. The first was done, couldn't do it. But I had to think about how I could create a position that worked, because the example that I use all the time is a pretty simple one. Who's the first person who flew across the Atlantic Ocean? Charles Lindbergh. Anybody, did I hear Charles Lindbergh? Somebody say Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh is the first person who flew across the Atlantic Ocean in a plane by himself. Almost everybody who is asked that question can answer that question. The guy who actually did it second did it faster. He was more efficient. He was not greeted in Paris with a huge landing party. There were no searchlights to create it there because the position of the first person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean had already been taken. Okay, now who was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean? Amelia Earhart. Okay, you know what Amelia did? She created a new category. So my thought for you as you think about what your position is, there are lots of things you can do. I like the position Cirque du Soleil is a great story that I can tell over and over again. They were a circus, and circuses were falling on hard times. And they literally looked around and they said to themselves, what costs us the most money? Well, the most money is spent on taking care of all the elephant, the lion, the tiger, moving them, et cetera, et cetera. What they determined as Cirque du Soleil was at that point of its predecessor, which was a traditional circus, they were ready to fold up their tents, literally, and move on to other careers. And what they realized is that they had some really important assets that were not terribly expensive, and that's the talent of their team, the talents of their team. So they went out to create a new product, a blue ocean product, for those of you who are big on blue ocean strategies. They went out to create a totally new product, a circus that was really all about the people. Incredibly inexpensive for them to produce, and remarkably, a product that they have reinvented over and over and over. They've got Cirque de Elvis now, I think. I mean, it's remarkable. But you know what the really interesting thing is? That they are able to command ticket prices that are 5 to 7 times greater than what they commanded as a regular traditional circus. And all of this was born out of understanding their position, what they had to do in order to be relevant and go where they need to go. And those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves as we market in this place. And I also want to just make a comment about where we're sending the message. And this is really hard for me because I am in that category of as I consume information, I am not, my go-to position is not my Twitter account, my Instagram account, or my Facebook account, primarily because I do not have any of those accounts. I confess, I'm not good at any of those things. But there is a message that you're going to have to remember, that nowadays, not only do you have to acknowledge what your position is, where your competition is, but you also have to acknowledge that where you're sending your message is a really critical component of being successful in making it work. Because any of y'all who've ever seen them, I will reveal that I know enough to be able to see that I can tell when a Facebook message has been posted to Twitter because it's too long and it looks wrong and you feel like they took a shortcut and they cheated you. Don't you feel vaguely offended by that? Everyone who's young enough in the room to understand what I'm talking about. It feels that the message was not acknowledging your precious time. Those of us who are looking at Twitter or Instagram, at least part of our reason for being there is because we're expecting a clear, concise message reflecting the space in which we're sending it. What are we trying to say? And this is, what's your value proposition? And if you take a moment right now to just say it in your head to yourself, your value proposition, the 8-second message, that opportunity to fascinate those of us with the attention of a goldfish, and apparently that's all of us with the attention of a goldfish, you have to be able to articulate your value proposition, and you have to be able to do it in a way, sports fans, that is clear and consistent and concise and effective. And ask yourself, if you're sending a message out to the marketplace, if you can't go back and test it over and over and over again against this idea that I have a value proposition, and this is my value proposition. I'm going to make your workforce more efficient. I'm going to lower the number of calls it takes you to turn a prospect into a customer. I'm going to allow you to process information more quickly. I'm going to provide reporting that gives you a real capacity to manage. If you can't, in your head today, by the way, mine is I'm going to make your life easier, specifically in the financial arena. You have to think about what is your value, what am I going to do, what is my value proposition, what makes a difference. And it has to be spoken in a way that helps us be different from our competitors. And I'm going to say this, it is really hard for those of us who compete. I compete in a commodity business. The products and services that I offer are very similar to the products and services that are offered by my peers in the marketplace. What really makes the difference for the people who've experienced our service is the manner in which we deliver it. The secret sauce for us is that difference. All of us, is there anybody in this room who has no competitor? Because I want to be you. And I want to talk to you about your pricing power. because if you have no competitor, you're suddenly in a very different place. But most of us are scrapping it out in a marketplace that is covered up with really powerful and effective competitors who all have their unique strengths and their unique weaknesses. And what we have to be able to do as marketers in sending a message that matters is be able to be clear about what makes my, whatever it may be, fill in the blank category, different from others, and what makes that important to the person that's my end user. I said this was the single most important question for all of us who are marketing. It's the single most important question for everything that matters in life. And this is a part where I'm going to sound, I'm going to sound really sort of less specific and profoundly unbankerish. Because we don't say this enough as we talk about what makes us unique, what makes us who we are. I have a commitment that if I'm selling something and I walk in to sit down and talk to someone, if I'm selling or marketing something and I start by talking instead of listening, I've made a terrible decision because I haven't taken the time to understand what is important to the person that I'm trying to serve. Because my business is a service business. I have to ask them what's important. I have to listen. And then I have to be clear about, did I hear what was important to them? People say a lot of things to us when we're marketing and selling. They say a lot of things that are the white noise, that are less important. But then they also will tell you, if you ask, they will reveal to you what really matters in the conversation. What matters to them? Is it price? Is it functionality? Is it reliability? Whatever it is, they will reveal to you, if you listen, what really matters to them. And if your marketing message or your sales message is reversed, and it's really all about what really matters to you, then what you've done is you've literally lowered your odds of success, exponentially. That process in marketing is the real key to making it all work. I say, this is the unbanker part, by the way, for those of you who are listening, and I really wish this weren't being videoed, but it is what it is. The unbanker part that I would say, there's also a part of this which is the authenticity of what you say in response. If you're a phony in business or in life or in marketing, it is apparent instantly. It's very, think about it. That's the reason there are salespeople that we love to see coming, and then there are salespeople and marketers that we feel like we've been basically carnival barkers / snake oil salesmen / whatever pejorative term you're going to assign to them. But the thing that I will say about the authenticity of our messages in marketing, what we're trying to say is often wrapped in such a complex package that it's not, I don't ever say, I'm going to make your life easier, because that doesn't respond to their problem. My objective is to make their life easier, but I want to be able to be specific about how I will accomplish that for you. What will I do that will be different? What will make a difference? And the message authentically delivered in response to their honest input will make your marketing and your sales so powerful that you'll forget how hard it is to do what we're talking about. When you solve someone else's problem, they won't just become your customer, they'll become your partner. When you solve someone else's partner, they won't just leave and consume your product, but they'll tell other people about what you did for them that touched them. Because it's so rare that happens in our world of selling and marketing. It's so rare that it is a moment that becomes important to that person as well as important to you. And I say that as back to this idea of what message we're sending over and over again. By the way, all of us are sending a message every moment, every day. We're sending the message whether we intend to or not. You need to remember that. I'm the world's worst poker player. I have no poker face. If I have a straight flush, I've got it. By the way, there is such a thing as a straight. Yeah, there is if I have nothing in my hand, everyone at the table knows I have nothing in my hand. So I'm saying to you that this sense of, if I'm looking at somebody and I don't have a solution to their problem, do you know what I've learned to say? I can't solve your problem. I'm not the best person to solve your problem. I'm not able to create the solution that you need. Let me help you find a person that can help you do that. Many of my most important relationships in marketing and selling have come from my moment of saying, I'm not the best solution for you. Because they remember that when I am the best solution for them. And as we're sending those messages over and over again, because everybody in this room knows it, so I'm repeating to you what you already know. Your marketing and your sales is the collection of every interaction and every communication you have with everyone who matters, be they customer or prospect or someone who will never do business with you. And you have to own that in a way that makes them feel validated and affirmed, and dare I say it, even loved. Because what I will tell you, there's a concept that's out there nowadays. Oh wait, and I'm not going to go too long. I need to stop talking shortly. There's a concept that's out there nowadays about what we really want to be. I don't want to just have a brand that matters as a company or as a person. I want to have a brand that my customers and my prospects own with me. Something that they love in the same way that I love it. And that's what we're all going for as we're sending this message that matters. And the way you distill that message individually is a building process. How you do it's going to be unique to yourself. And oh, by the way, if you try to copy someone else, it will seem exactly like you copied somebody else. So you have this glorious opportunity in your sending of your message that matters to create a real and authentic message that resonates because of its clarity of purpose and it's real acknowledgement of the other human being on the other side of the transaction that really matters. I want to just say, everybody, did anybody watch the Super Bowl? Most of the time, actually, I was so devastated. I was Team Peyton, so it wasn't a good day for me. But I did stay tuned to watch the commercials. And, you know, the message that I'm sending now about this sense that you're selling something gets me back to why Budweiser is one of the great marketers of all time. Did everybody see the puppy commercial? Okay. There was no, the puppy, Clydesdale is a symbol, a proxy symbol for Budweiser. But there's no point, there was no Budweiser emblazoned on the side of the Clydesdale. There was not a beer can of Budweiser in that entire commercial. There was nothing but a precious puppy and a horse that created a connection between each other. And the story of how that puppy and that horse worked hard to be together. Now, there's a great story about how long it took them to make it and what they did, but what it really did was it was Budweiser's acknowledgement that what they were selling was a powerful human emotional relationship. I don't even drink beer, but I want a Budweiser. I really don't like it. It smells bad. But you know what I mean about this sense of it? Think about what they did. And do you know what, for those of us who love it, their hashtag at the very end was hashtag Best Buds. That hashtag trail was extraordinary. And what I'm trying to say to all of us as marketing and sales executives in this room is create your own extraordinary, authentic Best Buds moment by doing these things when you're sending your marketing message. Be simple, be truthful, be consistent, be relevant, and remember, you ought to be reinforcing your position every time, over and over and again. But at the end of the day, also remember that in spite of the fact that we only have 8 seconds of attention span, which, by the way, thank y'all for giving me way more than 8 seconds, and for staying engaged as you possibly could. But what we're really trying to do is build something that matters over the long haul and in a way that will create equity for you so that long after you're gone, the message that you sent, cast out in that bottle, will be important to someone who's receiving it on another end. And it will put you on the ladder where you want to be. It will make them ready to hear a message that they believe is honest and honorable and authentic. It will create faster results. It'll make every dollar you invest in every activity that you do more efficient. And it'll create something that I like to call brand equity, which means that at the end of the day, at the end of that Budweiser commercial, people identified not with the product, the beer, but with the sensibility of understanding that our connections are really important. And my final thoughts, because I think we ought to say it, nothing about this process is easy. If anyone ever tells you that it is, then call someone else, because they're lying. The process is continuing to change. I've got to say to you that I have loved this business of selling and marketing for my whole entire career, but I feel like I need to read a book every night to stay current, because it's changing so quickly, because the ways in which we can connect and communicate with each other are changing so quickly. So you have to be willing to keep learning over and over and over again. And you have to be willing to let go of the things that you've loved that have worked in the past, because they worked and loved, that you loved them and they worked in the past, you have to acknowledge that they're going to change, and you're going to have to change with them if you're going to continue to have success. And the last thing I will tell you that happens every time, if you're in that sweet spot, if you've hit a perfect golf shot, which parenthetically has never happened for me. If you're in a position where you feel like you're on a roll, you're in a groove, you know what that feeling is when you know you're in the right place. I can tell you with certainty that you will all know when you're sending a message that matters. And that's what I wish for us all. Thank you.